So let's wait that.
Oops. Let me pause it 1 second.
All right, so this is the Maynard Zoning Board of Appeals. It is the 23rd of October. It is 7:02 p.m. We're meeting remotely. And we have several cases in front of us tonight. And Bill, I'd ask you to introduce folks that are special to the town.
Okay, we'll start, this is all for the 2 to 6 powder mill when you want to.
Yes, we'll start with that one.
Open it. Right, okay. So we have Steve Chaplin, who's town council, and I think we already tested his voicemail or his volume, and he's okay. You can hear us all right, Steve, right?
I can.
Oh, I lost you there. I better try it one more time for you now.
Can you hear me now?
Not well.
Not well.
No.
If I get closer to the microphone, is it better?
Hey, that works.
There you
yes.
go.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll be up hot on the mic.
That's
Good.
it. Let's and for the applicants tonight, I think Mark Bobrowski is going to be presenting or representing. Mark, can you hear me?
I can. Bill, can you hear me?
Yep, perfect.
Very good. Thank you.
So Mr. Chair, if you want, I can give you a little background on this.
Well, before we jump into the details, let's introduce the board members.
Okay.
All right, I'm Paul Shiner. I'm the chair of the zoning board. And we have, John, let's start with you.
John Corville, member of the zoning board.
Paige,
Hi, everyone. I'm Paige Sapiega. I'm the vice chair.
Leslie,
Leslie Bryant.
and Jerry.
Barry Colbert, board member.
And those are the active people. We also have Brad, who is our.
Brad Schultz. Brad Schultz, alternate.
All right, so let me read the notice here. This is a public hearing for the 2-6 Powder Mill Road variant request. It is filed by the petitioner, Blakeman, Bobrowski, Haverty, and Silverstein of 9 Damon Mill Square, Concord, Mass, on behalf of the owner, which is 2 Powder Mill LLC in Natick. The petitioner is requesting a variance to provide relief from section 9.4.3 table H of the zoning bylaws to allow an area designated for motor vehicle parking and circulation that's to be located under upper level occupied building space to exceed 25% of the building footprint. The subject property is located at 2 to 6 Powder Mill Road, Maynard. Proposed plan is for a mixed-use development with 36 residential units, 4,950 square feet of commercial space, and it is being developed under the Downtown Overlay District zoning regulations, included but not limited to a whole series of sections of the zoning bylaws. We're here today to talk about the variance request only, and that is for exceeding the 25% of the building footprint that's allocated under the DOD overlay. So the petitioner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark Bobrowski. I'm attorney for the applicant. My office is in Damon Mill in Concord, West Concord, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. This is a project that we think will bookend I guess it would be the east end of town, much like the McDonald property is going to be the bookend on the west side of town, a project that I had the pleasure of working on a couple of years ago. So this is a very prominent location. It's across from the BP station. It's at the junction of Powder Mill Road and Route 27, which I believe is Waltham Street. And the project basically is going to offer 36 dwelling units. The building is proposed at 4 stories. 9 of the units will be affordable at different area median income calculations. And there will be mixed use in the building as well. We think that it's exactly what the DOD was intended to do, and we think that it'll bring some revitalization to this particular end of downtown. Drove the street yesterday, and Bill and I were talking today about a couple of storefronts still remain vacant. The more people downtown, the more likely that problem goes away because services will be much desired by the new occupants. as I indicated, the project requires a number of different special permits. We'll be in front of the planning board tomorrow night to begin that process. We've got a presentation for them, much like this evening. So I'm going to show you if I can share screen. Or Bill, if you have the slide to put up.
I don't, but I'm gonna make it so you guys can share.
Okay,
There you are. You should be able to.
great. Thank you.
Got it.
Okay, so this is the existing premises. You can see that low slung building right on the corner there. The area has been not used in recent history. There is a retail outlet on the corner that is not a part of the property. I believe it's primarily a vendor of comic books and other sundries of that sort. To show you how the two buildings fit together here. Hang on one second. If I change this sheet, does it follow for you that you can see the sheet as well?
Very good,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, so this is our site. If you follow my cursor, this is the existing store on the very corner. That will not be a part of the project. It will not change. I'm going to go back to the first slide to again show you the existing conditions on the site. And here's a perspective view of what will come next if the project is completed to fruition. So this is the 36 unit of building. There's again some storefront commercial space, and we think it's a vast improvement. This is the low slung building that will remain on the site. We think it's a vast improvement. So I'm going to turn this over to Rob Truccolo, our project architect, and he's going to give you a sort of visit to the first floor of the building. And I'm going to change the slide for Rob here. There you go.
Rob's on mute.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Yes, I'm Robert Truccolo, project architect by design. As Mark said, the intent of this application is to provide additional relief for parking below the building. Current limitations are 25%. We will be somewhere around 51%. The number of spaces that will be located under the building are approximately 20. You can see the outline of the building above here. And if you want to go to the next slide, Mark. Yeah, so in terms of the actual percentage breakdown, so the amount of area designated for motor vehicle parking and circulation is 6,732. The total building footprint area is 13,076, which gives us a ratio of 51.49%. The limits being 25%. As Mark has indicated, the reasons for exceeding the amount are pretty much based on the shape of the lot, areas that we cannot park on. We have unique conditions where we're along the riverfront here. We have also been asked to provide public amenities areas, which we can't, a patio area and bike storage areas, which we also can't park under. We have the required building retail component. And generally, we're talking about being able to park under the building and have some surface parking as well, which will meet the requirements for the overall parking for the 36 units and the retail parking area.
I think it would be
If everybody could mute themselves if they're not speaking, please. I don't want to have so we don't have any bleed over.
also joining us this evening is our civil engineer who is here. That's Vito Colonna. and he can explain some of the constraints on the site in with regard to possibly locating parking elsewhere on the site.
Right, so Vito Colonna with Cornerstone Engineering. We're out of Northborough, Mass. So the site is relatively unique where we're restricted in multiple locations. On the page shown in front of you to the top side of the page is the Assabet River, and that bounds the site. It's basically the property line on that northern side of the site. And there's many development goals with that, as we're trying to create a buffer along that riverfront and enhance that area. That's one of the design requirements that we're looking to go through conservation with. And so we're trying to create that buffer and push things back so there's a balance between trying to expand parking and also provide that buffer. So we've kind of maxed it out to the where we're still balancing those two goals, where we really can't push the parking any closer towards the river. There's also a Mass DOT easement. If we were still looking at that plan, it would have been on the left-hand side of the page. We can't really put structures or anything else in that area. It's really not usable other than, you know, say a walkway across it or some site grading or landscaping. So that really restricts that kind of corner up near Waltham Street. And then we're also trying to provide good circulation through the site. So access both on Waltham and on Powder Mill. So to meet all those goals, we really, you know, are limited, and we've really maximized the amount of parking that we can have on site with the current layout. So I think that kind of comes is our justification for where our end was, and I think Rob also kind of outlined many of those points also. I'll hand it back over to Mark if he wants to take over anything.
Thanks. I somehow managed to drop this, so hang on a second while I get it back.
Okay. I could put it up there if you need it.
Go right ahead.
There we go.
So I want to bring you back to the
Which one?
criteria for the grant of a variance, and if we just put it on slide, that's good enough. So I'll bet for the purposes of discussion that we are the only lot in the town of Maynard, particularly in the downtown, that has frontage on two streets, two prominent streets, and a river occupying three sides of this piece of property. That would be the Powder Mill side, the Route 27 side, and the north side, which is the Assabet River. In addition, to further complicate matters, we're probably the only site in Maynard that has a small building in the corner that we don't have control over, which makes the lot into a relatively unique shape. If you can, Vito, if you can just outline the shape of the lot, eliminating the corner lot, you can see we're in a tough pinch there. Obviously, if we had control over that corner lot, we'd do something different and move the parking, move the building forward to the street end, we'd have more room for the parking outside from underneath the building. So we think we qualify under the first prong of Chapter 48, Section 10, which is that the request for the variance is predicated upon a soil condition, shape, or topographical constraint. By way of topography, also note that the site slopes currently from Powder Mill toward the river, and that makes the construction of the parking under ideally situated given what we have to work with. The second prong of Chapter 48, Section 10 focuses on the issue of hardship. I know it's likely that some of you are thinking, well, just make the building smaller and you won't need 45 parking spaces, but economically, the project would be infeasible if we were to reduce it to that level. So the parking under the building makes or breaks the project. I want to make that very clear. If we cannot move, if we cannot get a variance this evening, we have to go back to redesign, and it's likely that that will present significant hardship for us because I don't know that a redesign is entirely possible. The third prong of Chapter 48, Section 10 has to do with benefit and detriment, and the assessment of whether or not the project is good for the community or not. I think that the staff report that I received indicates that this project more than amply demonstrates compliance with the goals of the DOD. The staff report on page 2 issues a summary of all 10 purposes behind the district. I think we satisfy virtually all of them. Certainly, we've we'd be a welcome addition in terms of more housing in the downtown. Again, as those storefronts get occupied again, that's really what the DOD is all about. And I'll quote from page 2 of page 3 of the staff report. The staff believes a reduction of a proposed building size to a level where it's consistent would result in a project design considerably less consistent with the DOD's goals. The containment of vehicles within the parking, within the garage area, reduced noise and visual impact of the surrounding area. The fourth prong of the variance test is whether the use would derogate from the purposes of the bylaw. And as I indicated under the DOD section, I think we don't derogate at all. I think we meet each and every one of the criteria in the purpose section. So for that reason, we would be happy to answer any questions that you might have, but we urge the board to consider this application favorably.
Thank you, Mark, and your team. One question that I was wondering about, just as I drive around that corner and look at it, the land slopes quite a bit down towards the river where the parking is now for that junk building. And so are you going to make it all level with the street level, or are you going to have the parking drop down so you're basically parking at a basement level when you're underneath the building? Or are you going to backfill that so it's all up at street level?
I believe it's the latter, but I'll let Vito and or Rob answer that.
Yes, so the parking would drop down a little bit, but it would be relatively level. So it'd be slightly below the street, maybe a few feet, but it is relatively level. So it doesn't drop down and in severely. So you basically run around. I think I might have elevations on the last. We don't have elevations on that plan particularly, but if we zoom in here, essentially this would remain flat across since it is a garage, and then from here it would slope up towards Powder Mill. So there's only a few feet of grade change.
Yeah, actually, you have some spot grades there.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it fairly open? Like there were pillars and,
Yeah, we have some-
or is it enclosed? That garage area?
some
Yeah, if you go to,
renderings up here. Hold on. There we go. Oops. Trying to find it. There we go.
Yeah. So it's
basically, oh, I'm
open.
sorry, go ahead, Les.
So it looks open like an arch.
Yeah, you can see it a little better in the plan.
Mhm.
If you could just flip to any one of the plans, you can see how we've located the pillars between parking spaces. Just go to, yeah, any one of those.
I'll go back to this one down here. So yeah, we've inside the parking area where these hatched marks are, each one of these, that's where there'd be a column line. Other than that, it's all open within the inside and through.
So traffic already backs up at that intersection. How are you planning on dealing with that?
We have a full traffic presentation tomorrow night at the planning board because that's more of a special permit criterion than it is a variance criteria for tonight's presentation. But we have done a TIAS and there'll be a thorough discussion of traffic tomorrow. I did see some suggestions from the town's peer reviewer about backups. My son lives on Elm Street, so I know the intersection intimately, and there are ways around it if you just figure it out. But we don't foresee that the traffic from this is going to cause that much of an increase in the stacking there.
You're optimistic.
Well, I have to visit my son, so I have to be optimistic.
So any other questions from the board members regarding the parking increase concept? Brad's, you can ask a question, but remember you're just an alternate.
I understand that. So my understanding is, what I've heard tonight is there's 45 parking spaces total.
Yes.
For this whole building, for the, how many of those spaces are earmarked or designated for the residential parking?
Rob, do you have that
For the
answer?
36 units.
Yeah. Basically 36 units. 36 parking spaces and 9 for commercial.
Okay, so all of these are for the residential portion of it. And is there any parking that's going to be available for the commercial portion of it?
We think that the parking will be available because of the different hours that commercial operations will be operating and the folks that are leaving from the building to go to work and come back later in the afternoon.
So basically what you're saying is it's going to be public parking for the whole setup.
Yeah, and we have a special permit request into the planning board tomorrow evening for a reduction in the number of parking to the 45 spaces that are shown on the plan right there.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? I don't.
One of the special permits that we're requiring, that we are required to get from the planning board, is a reduction in the number of otherwise required parking spaces. And so we'll be making a presentation. We don't have our traffic engineer with us tonight because this is essentially just a dimensional issue rather than a traffic or a parking issue.
No, I was just wondering as to what it is that you're trying to achieve here with the underground parking. If that was going to be public parking, if it was going to be for the residents of the 36 units, or if it was going, or it was going to be for employees of the business, the commercial property, or how that was going to be handled. Because currently there's Maynard has a problem with a lot of the downtown commercial employees that are parking, and they're having some issues with that. So I was just wondering if that's what was going on with this.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be.
Space.
I don't think that it will be specifically designated. I think thus it will be for any purpose that the building needs parking for.
Okay, so that includes public parking.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's a very small retail component. I don't think that the retail component or the non-residential component exceeds 4,000. I think it's 4,500 square feet. So we don't anticipate that will eat up a lot of parking.
Just for the board, Mr. Chair. Oh, I'm sorry, Jerry.
Yeah, just a quick question, two questions, basically. So the residents do or do not have assigned parking spaces? They just take what they can get, or each one will have space 1, space 2, space 3?
To my knowledge, there will be no assigned parking spaces.
Is there, this is Paul again from the zoning board. Is there an option to increase the amount of parking? If you could get beyond the 25% and go beyond the 50% that you're calculating now, is there an option to put in even more parking?
That's sort of a site question. I'll let Vito and or Rob answer that, but just looking at the site, you can see that to the riverside, we are promising in our development agreement that's currently under negotiation with the planning board to put in a viewing area for the Assabet. There's some constraints in there because we are too close to the river to really make a lot of use of it. But Vito or Rob, if you know of any other place where we can put parking, speak up.
On the site itself, there really isn't much other space. If you're going to keep this first floor commercial space as is, if you're talking about increasing the available parking and decreasing the first floor commercial space, that's a different topic.
Mr. Chair, may I make a remark on about the parking?
Sure, as long as you don't park there.
Okay, I won't. This is Bill Namser, Planning Director. The project is being developed under the Downtown Overlay District regulations, and part of the spirit behind that, and that we've used successfully on other projects in the downtown, is we deviate from what we considered a more stringent parking requirement for the simple reason that we wanted to encourage more of a walkable component to this project. So in this case, we are looking at it from, you know, not necessarily having every possible parking space there. And we're trying to balance it as well. And of course, in this case, there's not a lot of room. And we also are trying to minimize or maximize the use underneath the building to house some of the parking. So I think, given this is a downtown overlay district project, and I would request that the board keep that in mind. With that's one of the core tenets of this zoning district, is to build on a pedestrian scale. And you know, the days of having 2 parking spaces for every bedroom, it just hasn't been warranted, and it's not the kind of design that I think is promoted by the downtown overlay district.
If I could follow up on Bill's thought, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
and I know this is personal and anecdotal, but my son had a Tesla and somebody rear-ended him and the car was totaled and he got an insurance payment. So he bought a house on Elm Street and he works remotely. They don't have a car. They walk downtown to your wonderful services. If they need something, they call a delivery service and it brings it to the house. And I find that to be completely strange and could never survive doing that. And I'm sure, you know, you can look at my head and I can look at yours and I know you're going to say the same thing. You couldn't either. But it seems to be very common these days amongst millennials that they don't necessarily have to have a car. And I think it would be completely consistent with my familiarity with that to say 1 car per unit is probably more than enough. And that would mean that there's 9 extra spaces here.
That's where you park your boat.
I park my boat in Buzzards Bay because I don't like
In the wintertime, you know. But I appreciate the feedback. Does
Thank you.
anybody else from the board have any questions? Jerry?
Yeah, Paul, thank you. Yeah, one quick, and I'm glad that it just came up that Mark spoke of his son's Tesla. So I was going to ask, are you putting in electric charging stations at all?
I haven't heard that topic discussed amongst my development team. Have any of you, Rob or Vito?
No, I haven't heard anything about it yet.
I think you might be needing some of that, and it has some space constraints tied to it that you'll need to look at. I just wanted to bring it up. I didn't notice anywhere, but
well, we'll certainly be ready to discuss that with the planning board tomorrow. We'll get together and come up with something.
You know, Jerry brought up an interesting point. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard that that's in the latest version of the building code, that new construction needs to have it.
Yep.
So
you really might want to check into that and see how that fits together with your project.
Duly noted. Yep. I thought I would end the presentation by showing you, Vito, if you could show the last slides. It might be 6 and 7. There you go. So these are other projects done by the applicant. This is Carr Family Projects in Natick. Go up again to the so you can see the consistency between what we're proposing at your corner and what the applicant has built in Natick, and I think the next slide is Wellesley. I want to reiterate that we really need your guidance here in order to go to the planning board tomorrow, because unless, as I said, we get the variance, then it's a fundamental redesign that we have to come up with. So I would appreciate it if there's not, I would appreciate a close to the public hearing and a vote. I don't need anything in writing. If you vote, you vote, but at least I'll be able to go to the planning board and tell them we were here in front of you this evening and that you viewed the project favorably.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, Mark. I think some of the planning board is hiding in the wings tonight.
I know, I see them.
Yeah. So they're hearing all of our comments as well. Is there any other questions now from the board members? I see Brad again.
Yes, I have one question, which well, perhaps we can, hopefully the planning board will address it tomorrow as well. So this parking, how many bedrooms are there actually going to be in these 36 units? Are they all 1-bedroom apartments, or are there going to be 2-bedroom, 3 bedrooms?
No, it's a mix of ones and twos.
Yeah,
So how many bedrooms total are we talking about of these 36 units? you know?
it's 18 single bedroom and 18 2-bedroom units.
Okay. So it seems to me that, well, I don't know. To me, my opinion is that your woefully inadequate amount of parking has been designated for this place. We should approve as much parking as possible for this project. I think it's a good project. I think it fits nicely in the Powder Mill plan for the Powder Mill development program, and the like first step towards that. But parking is always going to be a problem. I don't think people are going to just suddenly get, less cars. People are going to still have cars and drive around because Maynard doesn't have any public transportation. So I think people are going to, I think every unit is probably going to have a car, that more than no cars. So I think the exception to the rule is going to be a unit that does not have any cars. So that's my opinion. I also am very pleased to see that there's access to the river for the public. I like the plan. Really need to look at the parking issue here. And so I encourage the board to vote for as much parking as possible and grant this variance.
Thanks, Brad. But I was wondering, because I'm also concerned about the tightness of number of parking places. Is there some way to get parking underneath the entire structure?
Thought it was like high rating capacity.
Could everybody please mute if you're not speaking?
There was a certain requirement, there's a certain requirement of commercial space that we had, so we had to arrive at street grade. So we couldn't, as you see within the hatched area, we needed to provide that.
But you're putting that on grade. What if you had parking underneath that? Because you have a slope challenge that you can take to your advantage if you have lower level parking.
That's certainly a possibility.
That's sort of like, I'm just pushing the envelope here because I'm concerned that, you get the variance from us and still you're going to be short on parking 2 years down the road when the neighbors are killing each other and there's no room to park a commercial car to come use it.
That, again, to be clear, the board is not, what they're doing is approving up a variance from the maximum of 25%.
Right, to 50%.
Right. So that's all that the board is approving at this point. It's not the number of places or the design, because even if they do go underneath or whatever they did, they would still need a waiver to exceed the 25%.
I understand, Bill, and I'm trying to stay focused on the request to go from 25 to 52% or whatever that number was.
It is.
And I'm concerned that's not enough. But if that's all they're asking for, we can say sure and wish them well. Because then it's in the planning board and the others department to try to figure it out so that people can live in peace next to their neighbor. So the other residential projects in town, like the Gruber store one, they're putting commercial up front and they're having basement parking. And that's where I'm sort of thinking like this one could have basement parking as well. So, I mean, there are options out there. And, we can certainly vote on the 25 going to 50% with the caution that, are you going to come back and ask for more when you realize that it's tight already?
There are other options that we can explore, Mr. Chairman. I'm, familiar with the empty lots that are on the approach to this building as you come up Route 62. So there may be some parking that can be leased individually or collectively. We haven't explored the option yet, but I think that's probably something that we would look at instead of going to a whole new design for the other part of the building.
Yeah, thank you. That, I'd forgotten about that. There is that large lot just down the street.
Yeah.
So with that, I would like to ask if there is anybody here that would like to speak in favor of this that's not currently on the board or a member of the development team.
Do you want to formally open it for open public comment, Mr. Chair?
Yes, yes. If I have to formalize it, I'll do that, I guess. So I'm opening up the meeting for discussion from the public. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in favor of this project? If this, excuse me, of this variance request? I'm not hearing any. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition of this variance request?
I can't see everybody. Let me just make sure I go through everybody here. Okay, I don't see anybody either way, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So with that, not having any comments from the public that we haven't addressed, I'd like to close the public comment period. Now, Bill, to be formal about this, do I have to make a vote to that or do I just close it?
I think typically you take a vote to close the public hearing, and that ends the introduction of any new evidence. Attorney Chaplin, am I correct?
Yes, you would need a motion to close the public hearing, followed by a second, and then because we're doing this by Zoom, you would need a roll call vote on the motion after you've had discussion on the motion.
I make a motion to close the public hearing portion of the meeting.
Jerry seconds, thank you. So now we vote on that by roll call. John,
Yes.
Paige,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
and I'll say yes as well. So now in our deliberation of this, board members, any comments?
I know this is not relevant, but I am curious to know how much extra space charging stations will take up, and therefore it will possibly reduce the number of spaces that they think that they have available. And also, since this project is so close to the river, and the idea has been floated of putting an underground parking if the soil structure there, since it's probably in a flood zone, is that even possible?
I don't know. And we don't have any information to deal with that at this point.
Right.
So as far as the charging station question, I've seen them simply as the head in of various stalls. You know, you put a little cord up in the front and that's it.
Mhm.
I don't think that's going to impact the number of spaces at all.
Okay.
So, Jerry?
Yeah, just the one thing that I've noticed, I deal with a lot of condominiums and with under building parking. And one of the conflicts, and this is happening in downtown Boston and some of the high-end condos, that the charging station is at the front end or back end, at somebody's parking space, which is fine, wall mounted, that's okay. But the power cord then runs along the side of the car because it plugs into the rear side of the vehicle. Well, then the person who happens to be parked in the next space, so no, wait a minute. So it becomes an issue between the vehicles.
Yeah,
But
because you got a
here's-
cord there. Yeah.
Yeah, so here's the issue though. They don't have any assigned parking. So you're going to have several public access charging stations in the parking area. Because if they're not assigning parking, where I have space number 3 and you've got space number 7, I put my charging station against the wall and I'm paying for that But the cord, so it's the long power cord that goes to your vehicle, and supposing the person next to me does the same thing. That's where they're finding it becomes a real severe issue. They can't put two cars next to each other that both need to be charged. It's a problem. And what I'm seeing in this layout here, and again, we're not here to vote on this tonight, but I see it as a technical problem. These spaces, I believe, will be cut to meet the bare minimum required space for a vehicle. They
So my
won't be
pickup truck
oversized.
won't fit then, will it?
I
Yeah.
just want to say one thing in terms of the way the parking's laid out. We have basically some wider spaces between some cars because there's columns. So we do have the ability to use those columns to install parking, actually install electric vehicle charging stations. So we actually have the unique ability that we do have a little extra space between parking spaces in several locations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Brad,
Yes, well, these are all very important issues. I don't believe that they have any relevance to what we're trying to do here tonight. So
Correct.
these are issues for the planning board, and they're going to be starting to discuss them tomorrow. I'm hoping that the people of the planning board that are listening, so they will take our concerns and hopefully talk to them. But I think that we should stick to things that discussions that we can actually that are germane to the variance itself.
yeah, I appreciate trying to keep me under control here, Brad. This is
it's nothing
The,
quadruple at all.
yeah, and of course, the board can provide any comments that are not related, that are other comments about the project. Just relay them to me and I'll get them to the planning board, as absolutely.
Thank you. So anything else we need to discuss? I like the analysis that Mark pointed out in his application. The letter that I'm reading here is signed by Chris Alpin. I assume he's in your department there.
He is.
And so those three criteria that you read to us, I think, point to the issues pretty clearly. Do the board members have any comments on the accuracy of those, if we could use those simply as our findings?
Would you like me to share them, Mr. Chair?
So that would be wonderful.
All right, let's see if I can pull this one off. Can you see it? This is from the applicants.
Yeah, roll it up just a little and we can see all three.
Maybe. Let's see.
Oh, yeah, just a touch more. There you go. That should work. Just. Yep, that's it. Got everything there.
Yeah.
So assume you've had a chance to review that. You obviously read it beforehand because everybody's diligent in doing their homework. But anyways, we have it in front of us now. Do you dispute any of these comments that the applicant put forward here? Or are they right on target for what we will find?
Mr. Chair, if I could just note, I think I agree with all of them. I think I'd prefer or propose to modify, I guess, the second one to also reflect that they indicated a smaller building that would have a reduced parking requirement and could potentially meet the zoning bylaw, would not be financially feasible. And that would propose a financial hardship in that way as well.
Okay. Anything else? I'm not losing it, Paige. I just want to see if there's anything else before we make edits.
Mhm.
Nothing? We're all set? All right, so if we're in agreement and Paige has that one edit to finding number 2, maybe what we should do here, Bill, is if you can be a quick note taker on what Paige is phrasing, how she would phrase it, where she would put it and so forth, and then you can cut and paste these 3 findings into our
Sure.
decision.
Sure, Paige, if I wrote it down, I think if I have it correctly, the substantial hardship, financial or otherwise to petitioner, if the project were of smaller scale, it could prove financially infeasible.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
That's exactly it. It may be able to comply with zoning, but would otherwise be financially infeasible and pose a
Yeah,
hardship
so
that
would-
way.
Would comply with zoning.
So, Bill, as we were talking the other day, trying to help me get my head around this project, you were saying that the 25% was for a structure that isn't necessarily this kind of structure.
That's, yes.
And so can we put a comment in here that 25% isn't really pertinent to this type of construction project?
Sure, we could put that in the findings.
But I need some substance to that as to what that 25% was designed for.
Well, in general, the planning board and myself, when we began in earnest with some downtown overlay district projects that were mixed use, we were concerned that there was not a true mix of use with a commercial or a second use other than residential on the ground floor. Now, the purpose of that is to activate the street and allow a certain amount of interaction and so we came up with a minimum that could be used for non commercial spaces or not, and that was a big part of it. So I guess that some of the projects that were done earlier that we've done, we would have preferred to have more commercial or professional type uses on the ground floor, and that's generally what that is. In this case, with the unusual topography, and it's kind of a problematic site, we realize that it may not be applicable to all circumstances and would essentially be it's still trying to comply with the spirit of the downtown overlay district, but it's just simply not feasible in this case.
So I think I get it, and you can see why I'm still struggling with it a little bit. Is it possible to say that the 25% is to try to give space on the ground floor to commercial properties?
Yes, I could word that in it, wordsmith.
If you could word that into one sentence or so that we could put in here to probably item 3 to help reinforce that this is indeed part of the DOD overlay.
Certainly, Mr. Chair.
And if you could do it tonight, that would be great. Otherwise, we can ask the board to approve to say, when you write the decision.
Well, I think I could take it from staff analysis there. I'm looking at the staff report. And we talk about on page 3, the The purpose of the ground floor requirement is primarily to ensure commercial uses exist on the ground floor. In this case, staff, or there would be the board, believes a reduction of the proposed parking size to a level where it's consistent with the existing zoning bylaws would result in a project less consistent with downtown overlay district goals. That's still too long though. I can read it now. Yeah, basically that the board is determined in their finding that 25% maximum parking underneath the structure is not practical in this sense and would not forward the purpose of the bylaw, which is to add more commercial on the ground floor.
Okay, the rest of the board people, do you follow the gist of what he's saying?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
don't ask
Okay.
me. to read it.
And so where would we put that, Bill? Would that go into item 3?
I think that would be, yeah, probably 3 would be the that without detriment to the, but I mean, that, because it's number 3 is all about, you know, the intent of the bylaw and clearly this, you know, the intent they're trying to meet and you can't on this. So yeah, I would say 3 would be the ideal place to insert that.
Thank you. So we have 2 edits to it. And so when you have what's on the screen plus Page's edit to 2 and Bill's edit to 3, can I have a motion to accept this printed version with those 2 edits as our findings?
So moved.
Do I get a second?
Second.
Leslie seconds.
Was that Jerry made the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Any further comments? Hearing none. Let's vote. So, John,
Yes.
Paige,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes,
Jerry,
Yes.
and I'll be a yes as well. So that's unanimous on them granting their request for a variance up to the 50, what is it, 51.5% or something like that?
Yes, it'd be approximately, and approving the findings that you made.
Yes.
Right.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and board members. It'll be a pleasure now to go to the planning board tomorrow.
Enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So on our next item, we have a public hearing for a special permit at 125 Concord Street. So it's an application filed by the owner, David Gratner, 40 Elmwood Street, Maynard. The subject property, 125 Concord Street, is a single-family dwelling located in an S2 single-family residence district. The applicant is requesting a special permit to extend the existing nonconformity front yard setback of 25 feet. You have 14.8 feet there now to construct an addition to the residence. So the petitioner, please.
Mr. Grader, are you on here? Let's see. Is anybody here representing Mr. Grader? At 125, we emailed Mr. Grader today to remind him. And oh no. Let's see. I don't see. Let me make sure because there's a couple names I don't recognize on here. Amit, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Are you representing 125 Concord Street?
No, I'm his neighbor.
Oh, you're the neighbor for 125 Concord Street.
That's correct.
Well, you might end up representing. Susan, are you representing? Can you hear us?
You're on mute if you're still there.
We'll double check and see if he's got locked out because we have people coming and going all night. Let's see, Brad. No, nothing. Huh.
Mhm.
Well, Mr. Chair, we did expect him, and we did email him a reminder specifically. My recommendation then, if the board's okay, everything's been provided. He's been responsive up to this point. Whatever the board's pleasure, I think out of deference to the not knowing what happened, perhaps the board would be willing to continue it to the next board meeting.
Yeah, I can't set precedents and do otherwise because we've had this in the past. And we have simply postponed it in a continuance to the next monthly meeting.
I have a question. Is that, what is that side? Oh, Pine Hill or something? The street that goes along the side of that property? Is that a public road?
I think so.
It is
Hill?
so poorly maintained. I was actually afraid I was gonna go off the side of the road because I had to pass a car that was parked there.
Is that the road going down to the treatment?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's also where we had a dog training.
Yeah, further down the road. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was literal, I could not believe the condition of that road.
I don't know, Leslie. I have to check. I don't know.
Yeah,
Because usually, I mean, if there's something really, bad, DPW is aware of it and they'll go to it. But let me, Mr. Chair, would you let me take a break and just call it? I could call this fellow, or do you want to just go ahead and?
Let's do a 5-minute break then.
All right, if the
We've been
board,
on
yeah,
for an hour now. Let's take a 5-minute break and stay tuned. You'll call them. We'll be right back.
I'll call him. And if you just wait 5 minutes, please.
Good.
All right. Bye-bye. Folks, he's coming on in a minute. I got him. He got mixed up in the days. I'll be right there.
Chairman, while we have some downtime, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Or maybe anybody else on the board. Has anybody seen the minutes for the last month's meeting? Because I didn't receive that.
I was
All right.
bugging Bill on that, and he had a confession that they weren't ready yet. And he was pushing to try to get them ready for tonight, and I says, no, we'll have no time to read them and edit and do whatever.
Okay,
So our minutes will be probably 2 sets of minutes next month, right, Bill?
Right. Let's see. Mr. Grader on here?
Not yet.
Let's see. Let me get my. He was aghast. What do you mean it's tonight? It's Thursday. I said it's not Thursday. It's all right, let's see.
You know, thinking about that, Bill, what we probably ought to do is send them regular email invite tickle, you know, through the.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I probably should.
Because this is not the first time it's happened that people just misplace a day. Even though it's the most important thing in their life, they forget it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm always egocentric that this is all about. What do you mean? And it's like, let's see if I get. Okay, not yet. All right, let me. I panicked him when I called. He's like,
Well, the good thing is it's a Zoom call too, so we can still show up in his pajamas. He's okay.
here he is. I think this is a.
Hmm.
Yeah, you can show up in your right
Yeah.
with your little little hat with the pom pom.
Yep. Yep.
Is
There
this
we go.
Mr. Grader on there?
Bill muted.
You're muted, Mr. Grader.
You,
There we go.
okay.
Can you hear us, Mr. Grader?
Yes, can you see us?
No,
No.
not yet. You can turn your camera on. There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, hi, sorry about this. This is my wife Denise. Hi.
So
Okay.
let's start this one again. I started by just reading the public notice and asked for you, and there was silence. So now we got that figured out.
I apologize.
I didn't know anything.
You know, I looked at the email today. I looked too and I didn't see anything and
Well, this is not,
I apologize.
no problem. This is not the
Move
first
on to
time.
Stan.
It's not the first time this has happened. So what I've suggested to Bill, and you can put it in the minutes so you'll get a tickle on yourself, Bill, is that when we have one of these hearings for the applicant, send them an email with one of those schedule
Invitation link
things on it.
too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And at least that way you'll have something that jumps up on you once in a while and says, yo, where are you?
yeah, right.
So,
My dentist. That's that.
so let's start this hearing again. It's a public hearing for 125 Concord Street special permit. It's a special permit filed by the owner applicant David Grader for Elmwood Street, Maynard. The subject property, 125 Concord Street, is a single-family dwelling located in an S2 single-family residence zoning district. The applicant is requesting a special permit to extend a existing non-conformity front yard setback. 25 feet is required and 14.8 feet is there now to construct an addition to the residence. And
Yes.
so if you would describe your project, what you want to do, and take it away.
Yes, so it's on the side street is Pine Hill and the front main road is Concord. That's the address, Concord Street. The house is a little bungalow, really. It's all original. 1945 is when it was built.
Yeah,
It's got the original stove in it. So, it's quite small. And it doesn't really meet today's standards for dwellings. Anyway, we want to do an addition off the back of the house down the Pine Street Road. We do not want to go any closer to Pine Street. The original house is at 14.9. The way that the gentleman drew it up is at 17.9. So it's offset by 3 feet.
To the farther away from.
Farther
Can I
away from the
interrupt
street.
Can I interrupt just for a moment? Bill, could you put his plot plan on the screen?
I'm doing it as, I'll get it, I'm pulling it up now.
Grandma.
If you want, let's see what they have.
Let's see if I can find a plot plan here and
It would be the last page of,
I got it. Let's see here. And I am, all right, this should work. Oh, what do they do? Okay, here we go. And how's that? Can you see it?
not yet. Still
Oh.
thinking about it. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Right. So in this case, it's an extension of the existing nonconformity.
Yes, and so you can see that the original property has the house on the corner. And then there is a little bitty garage there existing where that back driveway goes to it. That's an existing garage. It's built into a hill. You can pull in and around underneath that garage, or you can pull to the left and go in above it. And that little garage is getting decrepit. It's a stone foundation, post and beam. So it needs to be redone. So what we wanted to do was do an addition off the back of the bungalow and redo that garage, make it bigger and connect everything to make it a dwelling.
So even though it will still be it's set back a little farther from the side street from Pine Hill than the original one, it's still a little bit too close by the standard.
Yeah, that we had to do the variance because the way he drew it up, they said that the addition needed to be 25 feet off of Pine Hill. And if I was to do that, it would put the addition way past almost half of the house and clear over into my neighbor there of Acton. And it really wouldn't be appealing.
Yeah.
It just
fit right.
doesn't fit right, even with my construction guys are like. So that's why we wanted to apply for this variance. We're not approaching Pine Hill any closer.
Yeah, this is a special permit though, not a variance.
I'm
Right.
sorry, special permit.
Right. Right, yeah.
So as Bill wrote in the staff report, we have a series of items to consider for findings. Social, economic, community needs, traffic and parking, adequacy of public service, neighborhood character, impact on the environment, and a fiscal impact. And we have to develop a finding for each one. That's why I'm thinking a variance would be easier, but because that's only 3 choices.
That's true.
So here, because of whatever the Mass General laws are requiring, we got to do this as a special permit. And we have to do these 6 little findings.
Well, consider the first. Yeah, it's consideration of the 6. That's the difference with the variance too. You have to find the variance.
Thank you. I missed that subtle difference.
Yeah, because what the essence of it is that you're in what the board is doing with this. I probably should have explained this like 10 years ago, but is that the adverse effects don't outweigh the beneficial impacts to the town or the neighborhood. And that's what you're doing with the consideration of those 6. So more good than bad.
Okay. So, board members, any questions? That's
I-
not a question.
I'm wondering, so you're not living in that house now, right?
No, we're not. We bought it in, when we moved here in 2007 and lived there until the pandemic. And then, had an opportunity, when we came across a friend of ours' house here on 4 Elmwood. And we decided that we'd live here because it had everything that we needed so that we could possibly begin this project. Of course, because of the pandemic, our daughter was pregnant and having her second child, and couldn't find a babysitter. She's in Oklahoma. She's a school teacher. So we offered our services and moved there for a year just to babysit the child because she had to go back to work.
So we got
So
delayed.
got
this whole-
delayed through this whole process.
So are you doing a renovation to the entire house as well, or just doing the addition?
Well,
Curious.
that, I would definitely we're gonna.
The kitchen needs some.
Yeah, we're gonna wanna redo the kitchen and we would, put all that in, into the application for the permit again. I guess we have to reapply. I don't know, with my contractor, Bobby Morrow. I have several contractors, and friends, Billy Goddard, and some other gentlemen that are, prominent builders around here. Definitely, I want to at least do the kitchen. And so honestly, the bungalow is 1 bedroom upstairs. It's living in the attic, or your bedroom's in the attic with a very small bathroom downstairs. So in the addition, and also with the other drawings that I submitted, you could see that the addition would be a great room. And then above it would be 2 proper bedrooms and a bath. And it shows that we were going to extend the dormer on the bungalow on the Acton side into the addition and put like a small bathroom there and make it a wider walkway into that upstairs bedroom of the bungalow.
Mm-hmm.
And then the garage would still have a garage up above, except now it'll be 2 wide instead of 1. And then when you pull down below, around back, it's oversized 2 wide.
So those 4 parking spots?
There would be 4 garages. 4 garage spaces, yes, ma'am. I submitted that. I think it would be a benefit that we're on the corner there. It would be a nice attraction across from the golf course. We're right on the town line.
Most of the houses in that neighborhood, all the houses in that neighborhood are definitely bigger than this.
Yeah, I mean-
They're all multiple bedrooms, multiple baths.
Yeah. Jane's is the only house across the way, my neighbor and our friends. It is comparable to ours. Even hers is even bigger than the bungalow. Her bungalow is bigger than our bungalow. So these were that was the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because when our kids come, or my mother's come, and I don't have to put them in hotels because we don't have any. There's no proper bedrooms and with the little bathroom to. And if just for property value's sake and everything, and
The land itself, the yard is a nice size, so it could definitely fit a house that size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I know. And your garage definitely needs to be replaced.
yeah, it needs to be the foundation. Yeah, it needs to be redone. That's one of the main concerns there.
Yeah.
Well, speaking from experience, in-laws in a motel is not the worst thing. Just saying.
This is true.
Yeah, but we don't have the Maynard Motel anymore. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just it too. There. It's not like you have a hotel just down the street. Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Hey, kidding.
So any other questions from the board? Brad, you're on a roll tonight.
Thank you. I think. So currently is the existing house, is that a 2-bedroom house, or how many bedrooms is it?
They actually have it listed as 3 bedrooms. When we bought the house, though, there's one little bedroom downstairs. And then upstairs is, it's got a dormer on the left and a dormer on the right, and that's pretty much, that is the bedroom. You can see where the previous owners, there was a partitioned wall there. And they had 2 little bitty rooms, like 8 by 8 bedrooms. Like, I don't know,
Yeah, the one.
you wouldn't be able to get a dresser and a double bed in there.
Yeah,
But they had, you know, they re-sheetrocked it up there and took down that partition. You can still see the beam, you know, as far as
where it was.
where it was.
Maybe those are
So
It
in-law
was
rooms.
already gone when we bought
Again,
Maybe those are in-law rooms.
perhaps.
So my follow-up question is, so with the proposal to the addition that you're putting on, are you increasing the number of bedrooms on the property, or are you gonna keep it as 3? Or what's the plan here?
Exactly. I'm going to keep it as 3 bedrooms, 3
Okay.
real
Real
bedrooms.
bedrooms.
And
Okay.
add another bathroom, if not 2 more bathrooms.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board members, please? Silence is killing me. So the next step here is to find out if any of the other members or there are other people on the call willing to speak in favor of this application.
So I'm in favor of the application. It'll be great. The renovation is a great plus for that area, and happy to have David as the neighbor.
Could you,
I just have a
could you say where you are a neighbor? What's your address?
Acton side, 258 Parker Street.
Thank you.
So I just had a question about the time duration required for the construction, because there'll be some noise, there'll be some inconvenience. Just wanted to know the duration for that. That's about it.
Well, that's a good question. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I was gonna.
Yeah, you love just trampling all over me.
I know.
So
Brad
I
got me
don't-
wound up.
Yeah. I don't have a question of that, but what my question to you is, are you speaking in favor of this application?
Yes.
The details of which, you know, construction projects take time, they start late and they end early and then they don't end for a while. We don't have any control over that. So I don't think even the applicant can give you a simple answer on that.
Okay.
Well, what we could do, Mr. Chair, what we've done in the past. First, just let me mention, this is more for the applicant, but if the board does grant a permit, which we just found, they have to be acted on within a year or have an extension granted by the board. We just had one that kind of lapsed. That's why I bring that up. Second of all, would you be willing to stipulate some hours of construction? So perhaps on something where there's I don't know, whatever time, 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 or something like that, or that we could put in the decision, so that, but it's up to you or to the board. Well,
We only plan to abide by the, you know, the laws that are in place now, which is usually, I think it's 7:30 to 4:30, but most of the guys I work with, we're 7:30, 8 o'clock and done by about 3:30. And we plan on getting this handled, getting the whole, you know, get everything dug and the garage down and getting concrete, you know, poured, the foundation, you know, before freeze. So our plan is to have this done and give us something to work with through the winter and have it done by spring.
Mhm.
And this is the goal. And you know, there's nobody's working on the weekends and
Or at night.
or at night or anything like that.
Thanks.
If the
answers my
board,
question.
if that, would you be okay if the board was to put that as a condition of approval? No nights, or say after, 6 PM.
We have
Yeah.
a problem with that.
Yeah.
All right, just that's an option for the board if it makes them feel better. Yeah.
Okay.
And-
Any other people want to speak in favor of this application? Anybody want to speak in opposition? I can't hear you, Susan. I see your face, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
I was just gonna say it all sounds fine to me.
so you're in favor of this
Yes.
application?
Could
Okay,
you give your address too, Susan, please?
Oh, it's across the street, 257 Parker Street.
In
Just,
Maynard?
just over the Acton Maynard line, right across from Amit.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
both are Acton residents for Maynard petition. That's
That's
neighborly. Okay.
that's all you got, because on the other side is the golf course. They're not going to say much.
right.
All right. So with that, any other questions of the board to the applicant? No? So then I want a motion to close the public comment period.
So
Make-
moved.
Leslie seconds.
Yeah.
So board members, discussion? Gut
Um,
feel is sure, but we've got to consider all those things I read.
Hmm.
Bill, could you put that on the screen or can I?
Sure. No, I can do it. Easy as pie. Well, maybe not. Not easy.
Social, economic, and community needs.
Yeah. Oh, okay, good.
Um,
There we go.
Hmm.
Still not seeing it, Bill.
Got it?
Nope.
Oh,
Not yet.
all right. I know. There we go.
Ooh, now we're going somewhere.
There we go.
shoot, I
Drum
gotta
roll.
get it- my charger.
Can
Ta-da!
we see it now?
Excellent. That works now. Thank you. So, board people, this is what we need to consider. And for Bill to write up our decision, assuming it's going to be a favorable decision, we need to find at least a consideration and hopefully some findings on the 6 impacts. So is there anything that adverse effects outweigh the beneficial impacts? I don't see any issue with traffic. I don't see any issue with social and economic adequacy, neighborhood character, environment, or fiscal.
Yeah, yeah, so I'm sorry, Bill, Paul, I agree. I don't see anything that stands out at all. I think all of these issues are very nicely met. It makes it a home that's physically habitable, which right now it's somewhat.
Borderline, yeah.
Yeah, borderline. I don't see that it's going to impact, traffic. They're going to rehab a garage. Yeah, there'll be 2 spaces instead of 1, so it'll be a total of 4, but it doesn't mean that the occupant is necessarily going to have 4 vehicles. But I think it's also located in an area where that wouldn't matter if there were 2 or 3 vehicles coming in. It's not like it's entering and exiting into a main roadway. I believe it enhances the neighborhood character in that it's going to modernize things. I think it's going to be an upgrade. Impact on the environment, I don't see that it has any real impact on the environment. Fiscal impact, I'm not sure how to answer that.
Property taxes will be increased,
Yeah,
more
right.
money.
Yeah.
Right. Right, so it's more money to the rest of us. That's right, because you'll be paying more taxes. That's great. I go for that.
So you went through all 6 conditions. So Bill's gonna take notes on what you've said and put an answer into each one of these 6 issues.
Done.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it looks good. I think it's a good move and I'm very happy with it.
Very good. Any other comments from the board?
No.
So then I need to close the, did I haven't closed public comment yet, did I? No.
You closed the comment, we closed the hearing.
Okay, so, and we have some thoughts in front of us. And now we need to come up with a vote. And on that, I would suggest we limit the construction hours as Bill suggested to be conventional hours during the week, not holidays. And what is it, 7:30 to 4 kind of timing?
Yeah,
And the finding or the request is as the plan is described now. In other words, don't sneak another 3 foot to the side road there, because basically you got a double front. The way that lot's set up, it's a double front. And that 14 feet or whatever that building was set up to be. I don't have it in front of me now.
And which one, Mr. Chair?
I'm looking at the garage approaches Pine Hill the closest, and that number is what? 14 feet, 15 feet?
14.8, I thought it was.
Yeah, thank you.
14.8, yeah.
Yeah. And so the finding would be, or the approval would be, I assume we're gonna vote favorably, would be for that not to be any greater than that. You know, greater encroachment would be a smaller number.
yeah, right, no, it would not be.
Yeah. And so with that, can somebody make such a motion? You can just paraphrase what I said or say so moved or whatever you want to do.
All right. I'll make a motion to grant the special permit to extend the existing non-conforming setback from the 25 feet required to not more encroachment than 14.8 feet to construct an addition to the residence at 125 Concord Street. Given we have already determined that there are no adverse effects, and that we will limit the hours as permitted by the town and no holiday construction times, and that the construction plans be in accordance with the plans as submitted in their application.
Sounds good. Do I get a second?
Second.
Gary seconds. Excellent. Any further comment? Let's do a roll call. John,
Yes.
Paige,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
and I'll be a yes as well. And so that concludes our discussion and approval of your special permit. Now, Bill is going to tell you when what happens.
So I will draft up your permit over the next few days, probably, but next week anyway. At that point, it will be executed by the chair. And we will file it with the clerk, the town clerk. I will email you. Make sure I'm not in your spam, because I'll bet I am.
I
There's no
will.
way.
So embarrassing.
And we'll email you the decision that once it's recorded with the clerk, it'll be stamped, the one you get. At that point, you've got a 20-day appeal period where anybody who's affected could challenge the decision. Hopefully nothing like that happens. At that point, you we'll stop in at the clerk's office 20 days. You'll have it stamped and it'll say you're stamped in on this date. Just count 21 days and you go over there and you can pick up they'll give you a certified copy. It says there's no appeal. And then you want to take it and have it registered at the Registry of Deeds.
Okay,
And the reason for that is the building commissioner won't issue a building permit without it, because it has to be part of the record now for the property, and it's for your own good on that.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, which I'm going to start adding to all my any permits we do, after the permit is effective, meaning that after the appeal date is up, you have 1 year to start construction.
Okay.
If you don't, or if you're not going to make it, you could come to this board and request an extension up to 6 months one time.
Okay.
But I think this is the first one we ever had. We had one that expired. So, but if you have any questions, Zoe is your contact there, but it should be pretty smooth, and we try to help you out with anything. So if you have any questions, just give us a call. But remember that sequence.
I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we won't be dragging on. We want to get this done.
Like it's
Alright.
been delayed long enough.
Well,
Keep
thank
me out of
you
your
for-
spam. I go in these guys' spam enough.
All right. Well, thank you.
And
very
thank
much.
you again for giving us a call.
Yes, thank you so much, Bill, for calling. We apologize. I check my email. I swear, I will check the spam. I don't. Somehow I'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Sure thing.
You're welcome.
Next
And have a
item,
good evening.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
next item on our agenda is a different kind of item. I wanted to share some thoughts with you. You guys are done. You don't have to hang around
Okay.
if you don't want.
All right. Good night.
If you want, but you don't have
Yeah,
to.
unless you want to join the board, we need
Thank you.
members.
Bye, neighbors.
Aye. So I have been looking at our various appeals, or not appeals, applications over the last year or so, just trying to get a sense of things. And what's striking me is we're getting a lot of, let's call them footprint projects, where they want to expand into the setback. And the typical argument that they put forward is, we're the small lot on the street and we want to make ours bigger because of the zone we're in, and so on and so forth. You've seen that stuff. And then I asked Bill, what is the town guidance? Just because we're going seat of the pants is the way I would like to phrase it. It feels right or it doesn't feel right. And what we should do is have a standard protocol for what kind of a variance allotment or setback issue can we deal with? Is it footprint? Is it side yard? Is it front yard? Whatever. And what struck me is the vast majority of our building lots in Maynard do not comply with the districts. And so if I could share my screen, I want to show you what I mean. And so I want to go to this, and I want to share that. Did I do it? Can you see the map?
No,
Yes.
yeah.
How we can,
Right? Can you see the map there?
yeah,
Yes.
pretty colors.
Yeah, that's the town of Maynard zoning map, believe it or not. And what I live in this area here. And I was in talking to Bill the other day, and this is all, what district is this, Bill? Is this S2, S1? That's S1, right? No, that's S2.
Oh, this is S1, this is S2. And the dark green, let me see here. That's a good question. Where'd you go?
This is,
Yeah, so and you're S1, right? S1.
I think so.
Yeah, 10,000 square foot.
The front yard minimum width is 80 feet. None of these are 80 feet. They're mostly 66 feet. Most of the lots are even less than the 10,000 square foot. And it just becomes a crazy mess. If we go literally across the street, stop, there we go. If we go across the street, you can see these lines in here in the general residence. For the most part, none of those fit. That's a 70-foot width to the lot. None of them fit. And so I got thinking about this crazy stuff. Any one of these could come in front of the board to put on a bigger house or a bigger something, because this is a mill town built 150 years ago. If we look at this district here, this was built in 1904. This whole stretch here was built in 1904. They widened Concord Street. Unfortunately, that's another pet peeve of mine, because I live on Concord Street and there's more trucks on Concord Street than any other street in town. And it says no trucks as you enter it. But all of these are substandard lots. And so I got to thinking, what is the basis of having a different district, a general residence, an S1 or an S2? It's the use of the residence. You know, we got those large table of items about single family, two family, whatever. But we also have the physical measurements. And what I was thinking, since none of these lots fit the physical measurements to speak of, why don't we separate the use of the lot for the district from the physical size of the district? And so if you have a small lot, you can only put some things on a small lot. If you've got a big lot, you can do more things up to the limits. And so what I'm wondering about is if we could, if I can find my other screen here, the table of measurements, if we could get rid of that table of measurements, if I can find it, where is it? I got too many things on my screen here. Let me close this down. How do I stop sharing now? Stop share and try to reshare, drop this guy down. I don't need him. And go to this. No, that's not it. Protective zoning. There we go. That's the one I want to share. So share the protective zoning. There.
Yeah.
These are the numbers that we're stuck with. And I'm saying, in my mind, why don't we look at the building lots, like that map I showed you, and say we have small, medium, and large lots. If you live on a small lot, these are your physical measurements. If you're on a large lot, you can be more generous. And so where did these numbers come from originally? I think, and I have no proof of this, but I think these numbers came from control of new construction on the undeveloped areas. And right now, Maynard has very little developable land, unless they want to get rid of the golf course and put houses on it. And so this chart should be designated only for new construction, new lot of subdivisions. And for the existing structures, why not have small, medium, and large, or some other terminology, lots that are built up? And what are the setbacks? Whether a small lot can have a smaller setback and a large lot can have a bigger setback. Something to consider. And the way to go about this, I think, is to set up a discussion group, task force or whatever, and beat it up and see if my thought makes sense or not. If it doesn't make sense, tell me I'm all wet. If it makes sense, how do we codify it so it's useful? So that's my question. What do you think, guys?
Do you seen it anywhere else?
What's
I-
that?
Think
I
it's a-
have not seen it. But then Bill was saying that, yeah, there is something to consider about this, where we have the downtown overlay district. And I would say we have these 3 residential districts, we would have a residential overlay on top of the physics of the 3 different size lots, small, medium, and large.
Can I mention something, Paul?
Yeah, please.
Can you go back to that map you had with the with your house and all those? What one of the questions Paul asked, and it was really good. It's like, well, you know, we have these special permits and occasionally variances and so on, and you know, they're subject to the zoning. But if you look at like where Paul's talking about, where the inconsistency of these lots, in my opinion, didn't warrant the zoning that was dropped on them. And that's what we're dealing with in a lot of cases. So, for example, I can't remember, they all run together now, but not too long ago, we had a lot that was like less than half the size of the zoning district, and the zoning districts were dropped on it. Well, how the heck does that help anybody? That's the first question, and I don't have the answer right. The second question I had is, and this I don't know. When we talk about a neighborhood and consistent with the neighborhood, my first thought is, okay, well, these are you know, the aesthetics blended, or they're larger lots, or whatever the case may be. If you, let's say you're in a house that was a good sized house on a huge lot, and you're adjacent to a dinky lot, okay, and if you could build a house that was roughly the same size on the dinky lot, you'd be exceeding all the dimensional requirements, but you'd be creating a house that is consistent. But that's not what they're trying to do either. So I was like, you know, what are we trying to make a square peg go in a round hole where it doesn't work? Paul's idea with the overlay like that, you know, there may be, if we could recategorize them as small, medium, large, or whatever. The other thing, I didn't mention this, but and I'll let you guys talk, but this is, if we wanted to do this, if you guys wanted to do this, and I'm not looking for stuff to do at the moment, believe me, but hey, this would be a fun one. We could probably get a technical assistance grant, because this would be a case study for places that have antiquated or inconsistent lots. And we could probably get technical assistance from like MAPC or something, and say, we want to work on this, you know, redefining an overlay district to retrofit existing communities. And I'd be willing to write that or stuff, but that's just, I'll let you guys talk now, but that was my takeaways.
I think one of the issues is the change of use, or I should say change. If you have a large lot, you have a large house on it, people want to put additional dwelling units on it, or they want to subdivide their house and try to make a 2-family out of it, or a 3-family out of it. And by following the sizes of multifamily homes on tiny lots, I think that people would probably have a case for that. 25 years ago in Maynard, you could have 10,000 square feet per lot. I mean, per unit. So if you had a house that was on a 12,000 square foot property, you could not subdivide it and turn it into a 2-family house. You needed to have 20,000 square feet, and there really was not very many of those available in town. But that's all changed, and now you can do it with 7,000 square feet. So going back to what Paul was saying is, I think
7,000 and the right zoning, though. Right.
Yeah, in the right zoning district. Right. You mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think going back to what Paul was talking about is what is the use of the property, the intention of the use of the property, as opposed to the constraints of just putting a a number like 10,000 square feet or 7,000 square feet with the various setbacks, associated with. I think is a consideration or a serious consideration, because I know people that have they think they have double lots and they're thinking of selling it off, and putting a second house on it, or having somebody put a second house on, which is what they're doing all over the state and all over the towns around us. And I don't know how much of that's going on in Maynard, but everybody's trying to squeeze out, put a piece of property on every, put a house on every property that you can. One of the things that's going to happen is if we continue to allow people to build houses right up against the lot, all the non-conforming lots and everything like that, and build these larger and larger houses, you're going to end up with a community that's going to look like Medford, with houses that are just barely have enough room between them to put a parking lot. To put a driveway,
Yeah.
and then they'll be up very tall, with 2 or 3 units in it. And seems to be the option, or it seems to be the route that we're going to. And I don't see really any enforcement by this board to try to curtail any of that.
That's sort of like where I'm struggling too, because it's creep, a little bit here, a little bit there. And then the guy on the other side says he can do it, so I can do it.
And, and then they, as we talked about before, how a deck turns into a screen porch, turns into a three season porch, and turns into, a living area.
Yep.
So those things all happen, and they seem to be, so I don't know the answer to that, but we have zoning laws right now, and we don't seem to be enforcing. No one wants to say no to any kind of building.
Well,
for instance, especially if you have a chance, you have a large lot where you could have an opportunity to put it back into a conforming. Nobody seems to be wanting to do that either.
So let me pause you for a moment there, Brad, because
Sure.
I've had a similar discussion with Bill on this, saying that literally every case in front of us we approve. And he says, yeah, but you don't see the good ones, because he's been sending a lot of them packing before they even get to us. And so I don't know how bad some of those are, because I haven't seen them either. He just, discourages people from applying because he thinks the board would say no. And I'm wondering if he should send 1 or 2 of those in front of us so we can, see how bad it really would be for us to say no to it. But where this all started is I was asking Bill for some guidance, so that what's the town want relative to what we're doing? Because I call it seat of the pants. This one feels okay, and so on.
Right.
He sent me to this, what do you call it? The master plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to that, and let me show you what I found on this master plan, if I can find it. There it is. And let me reshare. And I want to go to which image? This one. And I share. And this is all I could get out of the master plan. And it's boilerplate. The third item is downtown. The second one is services and natural resources, open space. And the first one is a range of housing options. That to me sounds like the downtown district, not the residential districts. And so what we have for our guidance from the town for this S1, S2 and general residence is nothing. So we're on our own here. And I'm thinking that we need to have something, either it's a redesign of what those numbers really are for the zoning, where we want to, so a guy's got a small lot and he's got a small house on it. So be it. It looks cute to have a small house and then a McMansion next door and so on. But the variety is nice. To have everybody cramming to the borders, like Brad says, that's not Maynard. Maynard wants to have some open space.
Well, it is, I can understand how say that, but let's step back a minute. The purpose of the master plan is not to micromanage every board. It's to provide a rationale for policymaking and for decision making. So it's deliberately designed to be broad. So that's why in my position, it can be so infuriating when if we're talking about something inconsistent with the master plan and it's that broad, and then it's challenged. Well, why are we doing this? And you say, for example, I still get, why are we building downtown in downtowns? People don't want it. Well, first of all, that's not true at all. I mean, we don't. But secondly, I could say, well, this is our housing, our housing goal. Now, and I'll give you an example how I'm going to use that on the project we had earlier tonight. It's a mixed use project in downtown already. Okay. And that's what we know, that's what the goal is of that. We want to maintain a range of housing options. Now, in the case of 2 to 6 Powder Mill, that's giving 1, 2s. I would like to get a couple of 3s in there, particularly, but we're having that there's going to have 9 affordable units, which anybody knows about the affordable numbers knows that, affordable is not like low income. I mean, affordable is not affordable to me. So we're that project at 2 to 6 Powder Mill hits goal number 1 right on that. And it says that the economic means, the abilities, various ages. Okay. We talk about strategies that balance growth with town services and infrastructure. And right there where somebody brought up open space. Okay. It's true, this is a dense project. And do you know what? In our bylaws and in the planning board regulations, when you have extra density like that, there is an additional fee for each unit that's provided to buy new open space. So right now from this project, we're going to have $100-something thousand that I can get. Well, I can't give it to Julia, but Julia's going to get it with the Conservation Commission, and they're going to go buy more open space. So we could say, okay, this is how that works. And the mixed use, like I said, by itself is what it says. But what Paul's point, I think, is true. We don't. It doesn't tell you what to do with a single family neighborhood specifically. It just gives you very broad. But it's not nothing. It's a rationale to use, and that was the whole point of the master plan and all these to provide rationale for decision making without making a seat of your pants decision and saying, well, the town doesn't want mixed use housing.
But see, Bill, I think we're convoluting the built up commercial potential areas with the residential zones that are 99% residential with the home occupation hiding inside of it. And what I'm looking at is the physical measurement portion of those residential districts. And can we allow, to make a big house on a small lot? The one that struck me is that 2-family that went where that old single family was burned and they had a fatality in it. That was a very large addition in my mind that had a big setback issue that they wanted to put the 2-family. Well, yes, it's allowed. It was general residence and so on. But if the numbers for the physical setbacks were different for those small lots relative to a big lot, would they have been able to do it? In other words, a small lot and a reasonable living house on a small lot might require a smaller setback. And a large house or a large lot could have a larger setback. And it's something that I would like to reflect on. And one question I gave Bill earlier was, can I get my hands on the database that has all of the Maynard statistics so I can see what is the number of small lots that are even less than a general residence and how many lots are large and medium sized, so we could start putting numbers to that and say, statistically, 50 to 70% of our lots are smaller than the minimum for a general residence or some number like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that, we can say, boy, our numbers in the bylaws are really wacky. And how do we fix that? By putting in a separate table for existing lots. And we need to define what existing would be. Whereas we need to have those kind of numbers that are there now for new construction. And then we need to define the difference between pre-existing versus new, because 5 years from now, somebody will say, oh, it's pre-existing. And they can, do different things with it. So there's a lot of things hiding behind the surface on this. But my thought is it's worth a shot if we want to get some folks together in sort of a discussion group or committee group or something to try to flesh it out.
Yeah, because a lot of that also, a component to it is the coverage of the lots. These small lots need to have, definitely if you can't, if they're already, non-conforming on 3 sides.
Yeah.
And then you have to really look at, how you're gonna, approve a permit. Then you have to start looking at, well, what percentage of the house or the current lot, is taken up by the.
Yeah.
And then are you going to tear down their second shed to make the difference?
We did that on one already.
We've already made somebody do that with
Exactly,
a large
yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
It had a large lot,
But like in the case
that
of
was gonna be
the house that burned, if that had met setbacks, I can't remember what it was, but let's say it was 10 feet short. The coverage was not the issue. Because it's a general residence where they can, so if a two family had met the setback, they wouldn't have come before anybody except they go right to building permits.
And that's
the
what I want
general
to,
residence.
right. And that's what I want to set up, that we should have a reasonable chance of saying no without insulting somebody.
I agree.
One thing that we have to try to avoid, though, is if we have a set of parameters for every single, say you had a very, very precise formula to figure out what can be done and what can't be done. It still should be up to the discretion of the board to make its decision. And each decision we make should be taken on consideration of each particular case, the merit of each particular case, and not try to fall into a trap where you're saying that, well, there's precedent. We did this before, this is the precedent, so we must follow that. Because zoning boards in this state are not required in any way, shape, or form to follow any precedent of decisions made by the same board or previous boards.
That's what our findings are for, to identify that specific property.
Right, exactly.
And one of the things that I've been worried about in our last, I don't know, couple years worth of decisions is that we're not very analytic in what our findings are. We're more seat of the pants. It feels okay. We'll give this guy 3 feet because he's asking for it, and it doesn't look like it's going to make a problem. And if we had some guidance, not that we're going to follow it because we can do our own discretion, but if we had some guidance on, how much you can put on a small lot, where, if you fit within the parameters, not a deal. If you're grossly over, then go away. And what's that middle ground where we might or might not, depending on circumstances. And I'd like to get a better feel of what our tolerance is for going across the setbacks or the lot coverage. Those are the 3 big ones, right? The front and side setback and the coverage to make something happen. I don't want to be by the numbers totally. I want to have discretion in there. But what struck me is we have only, I keep calling seat of the pants, just the feel for that property.
Well, with that kind of stuff, now some of it, remember, I'll go ahead and accept that. I'll say, I don't let you guys fly by the seat of your pants too far. But now there's a big difference too with a special permit as opposed to a variance, as you guys know. And if the goal is to just say, we want to have somebody that, that we don't want to look like we're just, rubber stamping everything. I do weed them out pretty good, but I've got some wingdings that come in, believe me. But I don't want to do that either because it's a waste of everybody's time. You know, in something where a special permit, where it's a low bar, considering, like for example, a guy tonight with the geez, I can't remember the address, whatever, and
Concord Street.
Concord Street.
123.
This is a big lot. It's non-conforming. You allowed an extension, and the courts now, like we said, have been lenient if there's a non-conformity on how to do it, because we're in a housing crisis. They're not looking to make it difficult for people to, you know, modernize what's going on. On the other hand, you want to protect the integrity of the zoning district, which is absolutely the purpose of zoning. I don't disagree with it, but I think that there's a lot of thought we have to give to this, because just the map that we just looked at. Look at why would you put an S1 zoning district or an S2 zoning district that requires 20,000 square feet on a 6,000 square foot lot? What's the purpose? What's the goal? You can't even do what you're supposed to do with an S2. What's the goal?
And that's where I think,
you know,
that our big table A of what you can and can't do, all those use regulations. And those, I think, should be guiding for those districts. You know, you can put healthcare or elderly in there with a Board of Appeals event. You can have government things there with a planning board issue and so on. You can put a farm stand in there with a Board of Appeals and stuff like that. But a lot of it is you can't do anything like that because it's residential. You want to keep it quiet. So I don't want to change any of that. But the lot size in those districts and the existing district, the existing lots, I want to reflect on to say, you know, what kind of reconstruction, new construction you can do. And I don't know what kind of numbers those are until we get the database of what we got, because I don't want to shoot in the dark. I want to look at the numbers and say, you know, in a lot that's, for instance, that map I showed you, the width is only 66 feet in 90% of those lots. And we're shooting for, what is it, 75 feet? Yes, you know, 80 feet. You want 80 feet, and we're have most of them are 66 feet.
So you're right, but like look at the neighborhood that you just showed with the S1, where you have all different sizes, right? We have a lot of the, like you're calling the mill house size, and then we have these larger lots. And I'd ask you, if we were designing a zoning district now, what is the purpose of that zoning district? So everybody's got the ideas. What are you trying to do with it? So you have to decide what you're trying to do with it in order to achieve the goals. If the goal is to create large lot, let's say, for example, which it seems to me that's the intent of an S1 zoning district, is have larger lot, right? Then you say, okay, well, we're looking for large lots, homes in here. And then the question would be, well, why do we have 3 blocks of homes that are a quarter the size? That's what I don't have the answer. I'm saying I think your idea is good, Paul. I think we should work on it, but I don't know.
Yeah, the thing is, it's a thought. Let's poke at it, see if it makes our job easier and not all easier. We do work hard here once a week, once a month, but I want to decouple the physics of each lot from the social issues for each district. So, you know, if you go to that big table A, you know, you got 3 pages of you can't do this and you can do that only with permission kind of stuff. I don't want to change that, because that gives you the quiet residential neighborhood with yards and you can do whatever. And with the home occupation, it doesn't change that because it's supposed to be quiet and non-disturbing. And so what's the size lot? I mean, the artist one that we've been struggling with over the last year, the argument is that neighborhood has a lot of barns out back. Well, that's cool, but you're not going to tear down a barn and put up another residence because it's the wrong district. So you can keep that barn out back and play in there, do whatever, but you're not going to put up a 2-family or an extended thing because that's not kosher for that district. So I don't mean to belabor this tonight. We've been at this meeting for couple hours or the different cases and stuff. But I wanted to put the thought out and see if it's worth exploring further. And so, board members, how would you like to proceed, if at all?
I think it's very important that we address this. And I'm guessing that looking at the size and the footprints of these various things on properties will help give us better guidance in making decisions. But I also have to agree that there are way too many different residential categories for residential houses. So, I mean, do we really need an S1 and an S2 and a general residential? I mean, those are three that if we tried to change things around, we went by looking at the size of the property with a single family use. You know, that seems to make more sense, is to be able to use the size of the property and its use, as opposed to using an S1, S2, or general residential, something along those lines.
I'm just scanning through the table right now as you're speaking. And the only thing that jumps out that distinguishes those three districts, other than the numbers, is multifamily in a general residence. And that goes to the planning board to put in a multifamily. Everything else, it's the same yes, no, maybes in all of those items.
But that's an important distinction, because now thinking about it, Paul, on your map again, I hope everybody remembers it with the little lots on one side. But I was thinking for a minute, well, why wouldn't we just want to? Can you pull it up for 1 second, Paul?
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
I was thinking, like, okay, if we've got a okay, and where'd Paul's house go here? Let's see here. Wait a minute.
I'm hanging out in this neighborhood here.
Yeah. Okay. So if we go down towards Lincoln Street, say, or Brooks Street, in between Lincoln and Brooks, right there. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Those are all S1. That's an S1 neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right across the street is general residence across Concord Street.
Yeah.
My thought was going to be for a minute, maybe we're making this too complicated and we should just expand the general residence, like we could just, to where it should be. It makes more, it's consistent. But then you made a good point about, well, then you're introducing multifamily, for example, which they may not want multifamily in those neighborhoods.
Right. That's the only distinction, other than the physical measurements.
Yeah.
All three residential districts.
So what are you doing with Lincoln and the neighborhood? I'm not trying to pick on them, in between Lincoln and Brooks. What are we doing there?
It's all single family.
Yeah, but what are you trying to do with S1 zoning there?
And it has to drop back to the numbers.
I agree. I agree it has to, but I'm saying, what's the goal of the zoning?
Is not to get the neighbors to expand their houses so much that they're encroaching in on each other.
Yeah, and it's creep, because
But if it was creep, but I'm just asking, here's the thing. If it was creep and I had lot 162, 163, and 161, say, right?
Yeah.
Those, right? And if I'm trying to creep, then I would say I'm going to buy all those and make one big S1 conforming house. And I'm going to get rid of the three houses that are there and put a big house that meets, right? So is that, I don't know, maybe that was the goal at one point. I don't know.
Well, at that point, it becomes new construction.
Right.
Right. So then it would fall back into, the restrictions on new construction.
Right.
But you see my point, what I'm saying, Brett? In other words, if that's, what is the goal? What are you trying to achieve with your initial zoning? And that's what I don't know with these. I really don't.
And that's where I think that, because this was put in, as I say, there was a subdivision development in 1904 that put all of this in. Both sides of Brook Street, Lincoln Street, and Randall was all put in 1904. And so you look at that and you say zoning didn't exist. And so my conclusion is that the zoning table of numbers that we have now is for new construction. And the existing construction is catch as catch can. And what I would like to do, since most of Maynard is old construction, is to have something more in tune with the old construction. Leave the new construction there. If Maynard wants to sell off the golf course and put in a subdivision, they'll be stuck with the new construction requirements. But to have something that the homeowners, because like we had a front porch guy here, they wanted to cover their front porch. The house is already, you know, well within the setback, and we let them put in a front porch because it felt good. But if on those small lots, we say, okay, the setback, you know, is based on existing. You can only go so many feet beyond your existing or within X feet of the front of the lot or whatever. We're free to do anything we want here in sketching this out. But the point is, all of these lots, just in this neighborhood, you have all these other neighborhoods. See, these are bigger. This down here on Howard Road, that's a newer construction project. And in the flatlands, get this to wake up here. Well, these flatlands was another more recent project, and yet they're still pretty small. And then Michael Road and all this stuff, again, those are slightly larger lots because of the age of the construction. But still, I haven't checked those out, and I would like to at some point when I get the database. It's hard to do this one at a time, but to get the database and get in there and see what the difference is between new construction and old construction, or the vintage of the construction, let's say. But as I say, it's getting late tonight, and I'm just curious if the board wants to consider this offline in some kind of a development group or committee group to try to see if there's anything that we can do here.
Paul, do you mean that in advance of, I heard Bill offer to perhaps offer, I may be misinterpreting Bill, but you mentioned the idea of submitting an application for grant funding, and this could be something that they would look into. Are you looking for us to decide for something to occur prior or in lieu of that? Because I would imagine that an assessment of existing lot sizes in comparison to current zoning requirements and proposing alternative solutions could be something that would be wrapped up in that grant.
And that's where the workhorse would be. But I think to take advantage of that, we need to have a task force established. And then a request from the task force would be to, you know, hire a consultant and do this and do that. But, you know, just even before even that, because I didn't hear about that grant option until tonight, I was interested in getting the database that this map is based on, because if you touch any one of these properties, I just grabbed this one just because you have all the measurements here already. And if you go and you open up, this also has the data that the town uses to do its taxes from. And it's all there. So you can get the coverage, you can get everything on this database. But I don't want to do it.
May have this. I think she has this. She's
And
sick.
so-
She's been sick the last couple of days, but well,
Sure.
I can check with her.
And so once we have those kind of numbers in front of us, we can sort through it and say, yeah, let's get a grant, get some real consultant power in here to answer questions that we haven't developed yet. Because I think we first need to figure out what it is we want to do, and then see if we can do it and tweak it and all that stuff that people that make lots of money can do.
And then will that have to be voted on at town meeting?
If we make an amendment to that table or anything else we put in the text, yes.
Yeah, would that get turned over to the planning board? Because they're the ones who do all the approval and they own the.
Well, not,
They don't know that.
they would process it. They don't approve it.
Right.
The only thing they
Right.
do is
they-
recommend.
Right.
So
So they have to be involved with it.
they have to be involved. And
Oh,
what I
yeah.
was thinking is, Brad, since you did such a good job with the
Mhm.
planning board folks on the home occupation thing, that you set a precedent of the two boards working together. And so
Right.
I'd like to continue that. You don't have to volunteer. I'm just saying that the two
Oh, no,
boards,
I'm more than happy to. I'm very interested in this, so I would volunteer for this as well.
and then we can maybe get Bill Cranshaw or somebody else, because that's the only guy I know over there besides Chris, to be on their side
I don't know if Bill Crenshaw wants to work with me again.
Oh, I'm sure he does. That was good.
But see, it's just, this is just a, like a crazy thought of mine. Because the thing that kept getting me back when we were having all these cases is literally every one of these setback variances or special permits that came forward was because my neighbors can, I think I can too.
Yeah.
And that might not be true if they've got a large lot and you've got a small lot. So let's give them some guidance as to what you can do on a small lot that might not be consistent with the number table that we got now.
Yeah, the Board of Assessors has a lot of this, has a lot of information on this. And their database is, a lot of it is from a subcontractor, a Patriot, who does the reassessments every year.
But
Walk through
see,
all the properties.
any one of these lots that I touch on, when I open it up, it goes to a table. And in this table, there's all that data, plus the map shows what's on the deed for that property.
Yeah,
So-
some of it's accurate and some of it's very inaccurate.
That's
Some of
okay.
it's old, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a start.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I agree. This is definitely the type of resource that you want to use to get the information from.
Yeah.
When you get that far along, I think right now it's pretty abstract as to the idea of what's going on. But yeah, getting the data is you gotta do.
Because it could be that most of the large lots, the town already owns. Like this big thing that I got highlighted here, this big S1 thing.
Yeah.
That's a landlocked parcel. And how do you even get into it? The only road access I see is the corner here, but what happens in this big chunk? And if I open that up, it says Mockingbird Lake, Town of Maynard, see? It's a chunk of conservation land right in the middle there that everybody can, throw their old Christmas tree on.
It's my backyard.
Yeah. So that's where the Christmas tree's coming
I'm,
from.
I'm just waiting for you to click on my house.
I don't know which one it is. Don't worry about it. So I'm hearing that there is some interest, a lot of interest, a little interest. Jerry, you're nodding.
Well, I'm nodding, but I also have to say, at the moment, I would love to volunteer for this. But for any of you who went to town meeting and noticed that the Green Meadow school passed the town meeting, if it passes the vote on November 7th for funding, we move into design, building design, and I chair that 21-member committee. I have a ton of work to do. But if it doesn't pass November 7th, I'll come back to you and say, yes, I'll volunteer to help with this. Because I agree with you. I just right now don't have the time, not with the school and the safety things we're doing for the school district. I'm up to my eyeballs. But I agree with you.
Thanks.
Welcome.
John, I saw you nodding a lot too, so I think you're favorably inclined.
Yes, I am. Yep.
Leslie, what do you think?
I'm fine with it, but I'm also like a little bit overwhelmed with things. But I think that even those of us who don't end up on the subcommittee would like to review probably and weigh in on what you come up with.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And so Paige, what do you think?
I think there's a need for this for sure. I've been frustrated by the number of variance requests we're getting because the zoning doesn't match lot sizes for most of town. So I think we're long overdue for a fix, and I'm glad it's moving forward.
Good. So the next step, I'd like to get planning people involved up front to get their input and feedback. And so is this something, Bill, that I should tickle Chris and see what he's up against and what he can do?
Yes, yeah, but the thing is, with the planning right now, we have I've got the firearms bylaw, which I'm gonna tell you about in a minute when we close. They're working on. We've got the accessory dwelling unit bylaw which is going. We've got the the MBTA communities and Powder Mill corridor going. So everybody's stretched a little thin. But I think, you know, this would be something that they'd be very interested in, no question. I'm interested in it. It's because I think it would be interesting to eventually get a study done with it and a recommendation, because it's a real problem that could. I mean, we're not the only community that has this problem, and it would be pretty interesting. And I can talk to him about it tomorrow night. We've got, like I said, tomorrow night we probably have our hands full, but
You want to steal my thunder and catch up with him first?
yeah, or you look. I think it's great if you reach out to Chris. I think having a working relationship between the boards makes it makes it easier all around, because everybody knows what everybody's doing. That's been one thing that has been working really well, and with all the boards and committees and stuff, and having everybody work together. And just while I'm talking about this, so just so you all have it, November 15th is the Powder Mill quarter public meeting. I think I'm sure I'll send you guys an invite, but and that's going to be in person at the Elks Lodge. And then November 28th is our goal to try to have the firearms bylaw first public hearing. So Leslie and Chris and myself, we're gonna try to get a draft out and to the boards. So, but plan on those 2 dates again, the planning board 28th and of November, and the power meeting November 15th. Those are the things that we've got those going right now. So it's kind of,
All right.
I think Brad, if you, I think that, you know, you the way you think about, I'd be curious to see what you come up with thinking about that. I really would be with because if you look at the zoning map, it's goofy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no one cookie cutter blanket that you could throw over that to make it work.
And so if we look at the big table of all the do's and don'ts for residential districts, as Bill was saying, we could bring that down into one district, with the exception that general residence areas can go multifamily. And that's it. Everything else is the same criteria for all 3 districts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's exciting. I hadn't thought of it that way before. Everything comes down to the measurements for old construction.
Existing
Yeah,
lots.
existing, yeah.
Revolutionary. It could be a cool, because anything, the funding is, or eventually, where if we want a grant, part of the criteria is always, can it be transferable? You know, can the research work somewhere else?
Oh, yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. And if we have a issue like this, we can address, you know. Anyway.
So the next step here would be not to postpone it indefinitely, but I think to get some data. And if Julia can get some data for us, great. If we have to hire somebody to get into our own database, I don't know about that, but
if we wouldn't hire anybody, what we do is to get a grant. It's not, and I'll find out what you can do. It's
Okay.
just a question of having the resources. I can't, you know, we're going pretty good right now. We're still down a person in OMS. So I'm hesitant to just say, you know, Julia's gonna go, you do this, or I'm gonna do this. If I'm
okay.
So
And
that
so
was the thing.
I guess the next step would be me bugging you to get to Julia, and
Yeah.
and I'll keep on you then.
That always fun.
And then at some point catch up with Chris and tell him what we're thinking.
Yeah.
If he has a volunteer on his board that's willing to help us, that would be good. Whether it's Bill or somebody else, don't matter.
Okay. That sounds like a good plan.
So appreciate your feedback, guys. Been a long meeting. I think a very useful meeting in all 3 cases.
Yeah.
And so with that, can we adjourn? Do we need a motion, or we just hang up?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Well, that was fast.
Second. Second.
I had a
Second.
neighbor wake me up at 4:45 this morning.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm
All
ready
right.
for-
All in favor, just wave at each other. Yeah, we're done.
Bye,
Okay.
everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Happy birthday this week, Bill.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'll be 50 again.
yeah, yeah.
29. Woo.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Right.